In a world where reality TV thrives on shock value, last night delivered a moment no one could have scripted. Whispers turned into roars as rumors exploded across social media. Known for her fiery temper and zero tolerance for betrayal, was allegedly caught in a heated confrontation with Evelyn. The reason? A shared boyfriend. And not just any encounter, but a steamy night that fans claim has already been dissected frame by frame now. We're not saying this is fact, but the chatter is deafening. Witnesses from the live event swear they saw Ty's demeanor change in an instant, her voice slicing through the noise as she demanded answers. Evelyn's calm, almost smug expression only added fuel to the fire. The energy was tense, the crowd was frozen, and every camera in the room was locked on the two women standing inches apart. Ready to explode, social media lit up within seconds, with fans torn between disbelief and outrage. Was this a misunderstanding spun out of control, or the ultimate betrayal caught in real time? Whatever it was, the stage was set for one of the most chaotic nights this show and its viewers have ever seen. The room was already buzzing before Ty even walked in. But when she did, the atmosphere shifted in a way that was almost physical. It was as if every eye in the place was pulled toward her, every whispered conversation cut short. People later said you could feel the heat radiating off her anger mixed with disbelief, like she was carrying an emotional storm in her chest, and it was about to break. Her gaze swept the room until it landed on Evelyn, who sat casually at the far end of the couch, one leg crossed over the other, her expression unreadable except for the faintest hint of a smirk. Rumors had been swirling since the night before, but nobody expected things to come to a head so fast. The talk was about a man someone both women had been connected to, in different ways, but the real fuel to the fire was the alleged steamy encounter he'd had with Evelyn just days earlier. Fans watching the live taping claimed they'd seen enough body language to know something was brewing, but the producers, they were loving it. The cameras zoomed in, the mic stayed hot, and the tension built like a drumbeat no one could stop. Ty didn't waste time. She crossed the room in steady, deliberate steps, her heels striking against the floor in sharp rhythm. "You've got something you want to say to me, Evelyn?" she asked, her voice steady, but with an edge sharp enough to cut glass. The room went quiet. Even the background chatter from crew members died down. Evelyn's eyes lifted slowly, and she gave a small shrug, the kind that could drive someone already on edge right over it. "Depends." Evelyn replied in a tone that was maddeningly calm. "Are we talking about your version of the story or the truth?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. A couple of people in the back stifled laughter, not out of amusement, but out of sheer disbelief at Evelyn's nerve. Ty's eyes narrowed, and she took a step closer, her voice dropping low enough that only the mics and the front row could hear. "You think I don't know where you were 2 nights ago? You think I didn't hear about what went down?" Evelyn didn't flinch. "People talk, Ty, they always have. But you should know better than to believe every whisper you hear." Someone from the cast shifted uncomfortably in their seat, clearly torn about whether to intervene or stay. Silent Chantal, who'd been watching the whole thing with wide eyes, finally leaned forward. "Maybe we should," she began, but Ty cut her off with a raised hand. "No," Ty said, her voice rising. "We're not going to sweep this under the rug. You sat there with him in public, knowing full well how this would look. You knew what people would say, and you did it anyway." The live audience was hooked. You could almost hear the collective inhale, waiting for Evelyn's reply. She leaned forward slightly, her elbows resting on her knees. "If we're being honest, Ty, you and I have been in this game long enough to know that nothing stays private. Maybe if you were paying a little more attention to him, he wouldn't have been looking for company somewhere else." That line hit like a slap, and Ty's reaction was immediate. Her voice rose into a near shout, the words tumbling out faster than even she intended. "You want to blame me? For your choices? For what you did?" She stepped so close that the space between them was almost gone. And a production assistant shifted nervously just off camera, clearly ready to step in if things escalated. Viewers online later said this was the moment everything tipped. The chat section of the live stream blew up, fans taking sides, some defending Ty's anger, others calling Evelyn's composure the ultimate power move. Hashtags began trending mid-broadcast, with people posting clips and slow-motion replays of every micro-expression, every flicker of emotion between the two women. But inside the room, the stakes felt higher than internet chatter. This wasn't just about a man. It was about history-unspoken tensions that had been simmering for months. People close to the situation said that this wasn't their first clash, but it was by far the most public. The betrayal, whether real or imagined, had carved a line down the middle of the cast, forcing everyone to pick a side. And yet, through it all, Evelyn remained steady. "Ty," she said softly, almost too softly for the mics, "you're letting them win. You're letting the whispers run your life. If you really believed in him, in yourself, none of this would matter." Ty laughed, but it wasn't out of humor. It was sharp, bitter, and it echoed off the studio walls. "Don't try to spin this like you're some kind of victim. You knew exactly what you were doing that night." At that, someone from the other side of the room muttered something about photos, and Ty's head whipped around. "Photos? What photos?" she demanded. The room fell into a thick silence, the kind that makes your skin prickle. Evelyn's eyes flickered for the first time, and it was enough to tell Ty there was more to the story than she'd realized. The producers exchanged quick glances, sensing the drama was only just beginning. And the cameras tightened their focus on the two women at the center of the storm. The moment felt suspended in time. Every person in that room holding their breath, waiting for the next revelation to shatter whatever was left of the fragile. "Calm." Ty's single quotes as question hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Her eyes locked on Evelyn, scanning her face for even the smallest sign of guilt. But Evelyn's expression was unreadable, like a poker player who'd been in the game far too long to give anything away. Still, that tiny flicker Ty had noticed earlier told her she wasn't imagining things. There was something here, something Evelyn didn't want her or anyone else to know before anyone could speak. Chantal shifted uncomfortably in her seat and glanced toward the cameras clearly, aware of how raw and unfiltered this moment was becoming. Maybe this isn't the time, she started, but Ty cut her off sharply, her voice shaking with controlled rage. "No, Chantal, this is exactly the time. You think I'm going to wait until they cut the cameras? You think I'm going to let her walk out of here without saying what really happened?" The audience murmured, restless, sensing a revelation coming. Ty took a step closer to Evelyn, her voice dropping into a dangerous calm. "What photos are they talking about, Evelyn? Because if I find out you and him were somewhere you shouldn't have been, and there's proof, I'm not holding back." Evelyn's eyes narrowed just slightly, a subtle warning. But it was too late. Someone from the far corner spoke up, loud enough for the mics to catch. "They're talking about the rooftop pictures." The words seemed to echo, and suddenly everyone's attention shifted in unison. Ty's head snapped toward the source of the voice. "Rooftop pictures? What rooftop pictures?" she demanded, her tone so sharp it made even the crew freeze. One of the makeup artists, who had clearly been trying to stay out of the drama, whispered to someone beside her, but the microphones caught fragments enough to spark even more questions. "She was with him late. Champagne?" Ty turned back to Evelyn, fury and disbelief warring in her expression. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me you weren't with him on that rooftop." Evelyn finally shifted in her seat, her legs uncrossing as she leaned forward, her tone calm but cutting. "Ty, you're acting like you own him, like he was yours. To lose, the reality is, he makes his own choices. And if he chose to spend a night with me, maybe you should be asking why." The collective gasp from the audience was deafening. Someone in the back muttered, "Oh, she went there? while others grabbed their phones, already typing frantically to friends and followers about what was unfolding live before their eyes. Ty's voice rose, trembling now with a mix of anger and hurt. You want to talk about choices? What about loyalty? What about respect? You've known me for years, Evelyn, years, and you think this is okay? Don't make it sound like you're innocent, Evelyn shot back, her voice losing some of its earlier calm. You've had your moments to Ty. You've crossed lines. The difference is, I don't play the victim when I get caught. The tension between them was so thick, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Tried to step in, placing herself halfway between them, but Ty brushed past her, closing the gap entirely. You've been smiling in my face, Ty hissed, while sneaking around behind my back. And you expect me to just sit here and take it? Evelyn stood now, the two women nearly nose to nose, their voices overlapping in heated bursts. Well, I'm not sneaking around, Ty. I'm living my life. You don't get to control that? Living your life, Ty repeated, her tone dripping with disbelief. You call it living your life, I call it betrayal. The audience was eating up every second of it, the chat section online exploding with comments, some siding with Ty, others applauding Evelyn's unapologetic stance. Hashtags were already trending, fans dissecting every word, every glare, every subtle shift in body language. But the real shock came when someone from production, clearly trying to manage the chaos, stepped forward holding a tablet. You should see this, they said quietly to Ty. Snatched the tablet and her eyes scanned the screen. Whatever she saw made her lips part in silent disbelief. She turned the screen toward the audience for a brief second, and gasps erupted again. Blurred but recognizable, the image showed Evelyn and the man in question on a dimly lit rooftop, champagne flutes in hand, their faces far too close for the moment to be mistaken as innocent. Evelyn didn't even flinch. So what? She said. Simply, you wanted proof. There it is. But that doesn't change the fact that he's not your property. He can be with whoever he wants. And you were more than happy to volunteer. Ty spat back. The producers, sensing the moment was hitting peak drama, made no move to cut away. Instead, the cameras stayed tight on their faces, catching every flicker of emotion, every breath. Ty's hands clenched into fists at her sides, but she didn't strike. Instead, she took a step back, her voice suddenly lower but no less intense. You've made your choice, Evelyn. Now live with it. 'Cause after this, nothing between us will ever be the same. The words hung heavy in the air, and even Evelyn's confident facade seemed to waver for the briefest moment. Still, she stood her ground, her gaze locked on Ty as if daring her to say more. The audience knew. They were watching the unraveling of something bigger than just a fight over a man. This was about pride, about deep-seated resentment, about years of history boiling over in one explosive confrontation that neither woman could walk away from unchanged. The room was already vibrating with tension. When Ty took a single step closer to Evelyn, her eyes locked on her rival like she could burn a hole straight through her. The crowd, sensing something seismic was about to erupt, fell silent, their collective breath held in anticipation. It wasn't just about a boyfriend anymore. This had become personal, a collision of pride, betrayal, and a history of grudges that had never truly been settled. The boyfriend in question, Marcus, stood a few feet back, shifting uncomfortably, as if every second in that spotlight was another nail in his coffin. Ty's voice, low and steady at first, cut through the noise. You think I wouldn't find out? She asked, her tone dripping with disbelief. Evelyn smirked, tilting her head slightly, her calmness almost provoking more anger. Find out what, Ty? That he and I have a connection. Please, don't act like you own the man. The crowd gasped at her audacity, several phones raised higher to catch every second. Someone in the back whispered loudly enough for cameras to catch. She's not even denying it. and that only fanned the flames. Ty took another step forward, the air between them practically crackling. "A connection," she repeated, her voice rising. "You call spending the night in his hotel room a connection?" Marcus tried to step in, his hands raised like a referee stepping between fighters, but Ty shoved him lightly to the side. "Don't, not right now," she warned him without taking her eyes off Evelyn. Evelyn's laughter was soft, almost mocking, and it made Ty's jaw tighten. "You know, Marcus told me you were dramatic. I didn't think he was giving you enough credit." The insult landed hard, and Ty's face flushed. Fans online would later slow down the footage just to see that exact second the shift in Ty's expression from controlled fury to something far more dangerous. The tension finally snapped. Ty lunged forward, not with a full swing but a forceful shove to Evelyn's shoulder, sending her stumbling back a step. Gasps erupted around them, and security, who had been inching closer for minutes, finally moved in. But Evelyn regained her footing fast and stepped back into Ty's space. The two now toe-toed as the room erupted into chaos. Off to the side, Chantal appeared, her expression a mix of shock and something else, maybe satisfaction, maybe fear. She glanced toward Marcus, who now stood frozen, his face pale. "You need to fix this," she hissed to him. But her words were drowned out by the shouting match between Ty and Evelyn. "You're a liar," Ty shouted, her voice cracking slightly. "You've been smiling in my face while sneaking around. Behind my back, and you?" She jabbed a finger in Marcus's direction. "You let it happen." Marcus started to stammer something about misunderstandings, but Evelyn cut him off. "Oh, please, didn't let anything happen. He came to me because you've been too busy playing Queen Bee to notice when someone else actually listens to him." That line sent a ripple through the audience. The insinuation that Marcus had sought comfort in Evelyn's company because Ty wasn't there for him was gasoline on an already raging fire. Ty's hands curled into fists at her sides, her shoulders rising and falling with each breath from the far corner. Jackie, who had been keeping a careful distance, stepped forward, her voice trying to cut through the madness. "Ty, don't do this here. This isn't the time or place." But Ty wasn't listening. "Oh, it's exactly the time and place," she shot back. "Let everyone see the kind of snake she really is." Security finally managed to wedge themselves between the two women, but neither seemed willing to back down. Evelyn leaned over the guard's shoulder, her voice cold and steady. "Maybe if you treated him right, you wouldn't be in this position." The room erupted again, shouts from the audience, camera flashes going off like lightning, and the hum of live stream. Comments scrolling faster than anyone could read. Some fans were calling for Evelyn to be removed immediately. Others were demanding answers from Marcus, and a surprising number were defending Ty's reaction. The division was instant and fierce, spilling out onto every platform within minutes. As the shouting subsided just enough for voices to be heard again, Marcus finally tried to speak. "Both of you, stop. You're making this worse." But his words fell flat, drowned out by a fresh wave of insults from Ty, accusing Evelyn of intentionally targeting her just to get a rise out of her. Evelyn didn't deny it, she simply shrugged, which, in that moment, might have been more infuriating than any actual response. Meanwhile, cameras caught a telling shot of Chantal whispering something into Jackie's ear, causing Jackie's eyes to widen. Whatever was said, it added another layer to the already tangled mess. Because Jackie's next move was to pull Marcus aside and speak to him in a tone so low it was impossible to catch on. Ty noticed immediately. "Oh, so now you've got your little council over there?" she called out, pointing toward the three of them. "Planning your next lie." Marcus shook his head, but the optics were bad. Three people huddled together while she stood across the room, still reeling from betrayal. The producers, realizing they were sitting on gold, made no effort to cut to commercial or divert attention. Every second of this was pure, unfiltered drama, and they knew the replay value would be astronomical. The tension was now so thick that even the people not directly involved seemed afraid to move too quickly. As if a sudden gesture could trigger another explosion, and then Evelyn, with perfect timing, delivered her final line of the night, so far soft, but deadly enough to slice through the noise. "Maybe you should ask him where he was the night before last." The effect was immediate. Ty froze, her brow furrowing as the implication sank in. Marcus's eyes darted away, unable to meet hers, and the crowd collectively leaned forward, hungry for the next revelation. The room seemed to contract around them, the lights harsher, the air heavier. And the truth, or whatever version of it, was about to surface. Hanging just out of reach, Ty's breath caught in her chest as Evelyn's words echoed in her head. "The night before last." She repeated it silently, the phrase clawing at her nerves. Her mind instantly scanned through Marcus's vague excuses, his late-night text about handling business, and the way his phone had been conveniently on. Silent. She had brushed it off at the time, convincing herself that paranoia would only push him away. But now, with Evelyn's eyes locked on hers like a predator savoring the kill, every ounce of doubt she had pushed aside came flooding back. What? Is she talking about? Ty's voice was low but sharp, each word slicing through the charged air. Akas shifted on his feet, rubbing the back of his neck in a way that screamed guilt to anyone watching. "Ka, don't do this here," he muttered. "Don't do this here," she repeated, her voice climbing. "You've been doing this behind my back, so I think here is exactly where we do it." The audience murmured and phones tilted forward, recording every detail. Evelyn stood with her arms crossed, a faint smirk pulling at her lips, clearly enjoying the chaos she had unleashed. Marcus tried to steady his tone. "I was with a friend. Nothing more. A friend." Ty's laughter was humorless. "Like the friend. Standing right next to you right now." She jerked her chin toward Evelyn. The crowd's reaction was immediate half gasps, half eager shouts, feeding the atmosphere with even more frenzy. Jackie, who had been watching in silence, finally spoke up. "Marcus, if you've got nothing to hide, just say where you were." The directness of her question made Marcus flinch. His hesitation was all the confirmation Ty needed. "Wow," Ty whispered, her voice trembling not from weakness, but from the sheer force it was taking to keep from screaming. "You didn't even have the decency to lie fast enough." Evelyn tilted her head, eyes still locked on Ty. "You want to hear it from me? Fine. He wasn't with me that night, but he was with someone else. Okay, she's closer too. You than you think." The words landed like a grenade in the center of the room. Heads turned, whispers shot across the crowd, and cameras zoomed in on Ty's face as her eyes darted from person to person, trying to read the truth. Chantel, who had been quiet up until now, took a step forward. "You don't have to play this game, Evelyn. Just say the name." "Oh, I'll say it when I'm ready," Evelyn replied, her tone infuriatingly calm. "I'm not here to protect her. I'm just here to make sure Ty knows the kind of man she's defending." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You're twisting this, Evelyn? Am I?" she shot back. "Or are you just mad the truth's finally crawling out from under the rock you've been hiding it under?" The tension was unbearable now. Ty's hands shook as she tried to piece together who Evelyn could be talking about. Her mind flashed through faces, friends, family, colleagues. The thought that someone she trusted could be involved made her stomach churn. And then, from the far side of the room, a voice broke the silence. "Maybe she's talking about me." Every head turned to see Renee's longtime friend stepping forward, her expression unreadable. Ty's heart dropped into her stomach. "Renee?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Renee didn't speak right away. The pause stretched on long enough for murmurs to ripple through the audience. Finally, she said, "We didn't plan for it to happen. It just happened." The words set off an explosion of reactions, shouts, gasps, phones whipping back into recording position. Ty's face went pale, her lips parting but no sound coming out. Marcus reached toward her, but she stepped back as if his touch burned. "You?" Ty's voice cracked. "You were in my house last week. You held my baby. You sat at my table." "Ty, I'm sorry," Renee said quickly, but the words sounded hollow against the roar of the crowd. Evelyn stood back, watching the scene unfold, with an almost satisfied gleam in her eyes. Knowing she had orchestrated the perfect bombshell, Jackie stepped between them, trying to defuse the situation, but the damage was done. "This is getting out of hand," she said, but no one was listening anymore. Ty was locked on Renee, every ounce of her betrayal radiating through her trembling frame. "You came into my life like a sister," Ty said, her voice low but deadly. "And you," she pointed at Marcus, her hands shaking, "you let it happen. You let her take something that was supposed to be ours." Marcus opened his mouth, but no excuse could possibly survive in that moment. The audience was no longer just spectators. They were witnesses to a live implosion. Every camera lens, every set of eyes was fixed on Ty, waiting to see if she would break down or explode again. Instead, she turned to leave, but stopped at the doorway, her voice cutting back through the chaos. "Both of you stay out of my life. And you," she glanced at Evelyn, "you better pray we never end up in the same room again." As she disappeared backstage, the noise in the room surged to a fever pitch, leaving Marcus, Renee, and Evelyn standing in the wreckage of what just happened, the truth hanging heavy in the air with no chance of being buried again. And there you have it. A night that was supposed to be about lighthearted fun turned into one of the most explosive reality TV moments we've ever seen. It's from Evelyn's calculated reveal to Renee's shocking confession. It's clear that the bonds we thought were unbreakable have been shattered in front of millions. Fans are already flooding social media with their reactions, some calling Ty a queen for walking away with her dignity, others pointing fingers at Marcus for betraying her trust so publicly, and plenty wondering what Evelyn's real motive was for stirring the pot in the first place. Was she trying to protect Ty? Or was this all about revenge? Own things for sure, the fallout from this moment is far from over. Friendships have ended, relationships are in ruins, and questions are swirling about who knew what and when. Will Ty bounce back stronger than ever, or will this betrayal leave scars too deep to heal? Will Marcus or Renee ever face the kind of backlash they deserve? Or will the drama just fade into the background until the next scandal erupts? Want to hear what you think? Do you believe Evelyn did the right thing by exposing the truth, or did she cross a line by airing it all out in public? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video if you were just as shocked as we were. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another jaw-dropping moment like this, and hit that notification bell, because if the whispers we're hearing are true, this is only the beginning of a much bigger storm.